Nearly 1.3 million Europeans followed every official rule and asked Brussels for basic protection. Stop publishers erasing purchased games without leaving a usable version behind. Brussels reviewed the proposal, heard the organizers, and refused to create the compulsory rule those citizens requested. Instead, the European Commission offered a voluntary industry code, letting publishers promise better behavior while keeping control. Worse, Brussels rejected the demand by accepting arguments designed around publisher interests. Imagine buying a television Samsung can disable remotely because support costs rise or management loses interest. Nobody would accept that as ownership, yet game companies expect it through launchers, licenses, accounts, and required online checks. So let us examine the request, the Commission's answer, the accepted objections, and what happened when Ubisoft switched off a purchased game. First, consider the basic insanity behind modern digital ownership. You pay full price, buy expansions, collect skins, build progress, and still depend on somebody else keeping access available. Companies call it a purchase because buy now makes customers feel the product has become theirs. Legally, many publishers treat the deal as temporary permission under terms customers never negotiate or read. Apparently, you own the receipt while the publisher owns the product, the switch, and the shutdown date. Ultimately, ownership lasts only until somebody in management decides otherwise. Gamers did not merely complain beneath corporate apologies or shout into Reddit threads. Citizens used the European Union's official process for formal action. Specifically, the Stop Destroying Video Games initiative collected 1,294,188 verified statements of support. Organizers reached the required minimum in 24 member states, proving broad support. Authorities verified signatures, officials met representatives, supporters attended a hearing, and Parliament debated the issue. Afterward, the Commission responded on June 16, 2026, and declined the requested binding protection. Democracy worked perfectly until citizens requested a rule costing publishers money and control, even outside Europe. This matters because major markets influence how publishers design and retire games worldwide, since publishers often reuse the same systems across multiple regions. Global companies dislike separate shutdown systems, so a strong European rule could affect players everywhere, especially when one market requires stronger consumer protections. Before accepting the official reasoning, we need to clear up the biggest distortion surrounding the campaign. Activists never asked publishers to run empty servers forever, provide endless updates, employ moderators, or support abandoned games until the sun explodes. Campaigners asked companies to plan for shutdown before release and leave each covered game in a reasonably playable state after official support ends. Possible methods included an offline mode, private servers, peer-to-peer support, limited hosting software, or another practical system suited to the game. Importantly, the initiative focused mainly on future products, rather than forcing companies to rebuild every dead title from the last 30 years. Opponents still stretched that limited request into an imaginary technical disaster involving permanent support, uncontrolled code, huge costs, and endless legal exposure. Suddenly, design an exit plan became maintain every service forever, and hand the entire company to strangers running servers from a garage. Reality was much simpler. When a paid product depends on remote systems, developers should prepare for the day those systems are switched off. Remember, the demand was not endless corporate support. It was a planned transition from publisher dependence to continued customer access. Officials chose another path and proposed discussions with publishers, consumer groups, and other interested parties about an industry-led code. Translation is easy. Companies may promise to act responsibly, provided that promise never becomes a clear duty backed by real penalties. Voluntary standards can help, but they rarely persuade businesses to surrender profitable control without pressure, oversight, or consequences. Why would a publisher willingly spend more, reveal product lifespans, and weaken its shutdown power when current practice remains legal and useful? Nothing terrifies a billion-euro company like a strongly worded suggestion delivered after several meetings without a meaningful punishment attached. Meanwhile, talks begin only by the end of 2026, while publishers retain control. Essentially, the companies holding the switch were invited to help write the rules governing that switch. At this point, the argument becomes a wall of three main objections: cost, copyright, and security, and each sounds serious until examined against ordinary development planning. Grouping them matters because legal language can make several related complaints sound like 50 separate technical disasters. Now we can test each objection quickly before reaching the crew, where these policies stopped being theory and erased a real product. According to the Commission's response, publishers may face development costs, outside licenses, intellectual property limits, Safety concerns and restrictions on business freedom. These concerns deserve answers, but they are not automatic vetoes. Cost comes first because shutdown features require planning, testing, documentation, and engineering work that somebody must pay for. Certainly, no serious person claims offline modes or private server tools appear by magic at the final meeting. Yet publishers already budget for premium editions, cosmetic stores, battle passes, currencies, roadmaps, downloadable content, advertising, and retirement schedules. Somehow, 7 monetization systems can be planned before launch, while one exit plan becomes advanced science beyond human understanding. Planning preservation early may raise costs, but planning nothing transfers the entire loss to customers who already paid. Copyright forms the second part of the wall because games can contain licensed music, branded vehicles, outside software, and code owned by other companies. Those limits are real, although developers usually know about them while contracts are written and products are still being built. Known problems could be handled through removable assets, replacement content, separate online functions, adjusted agreements, or clear warnings before purchase. Likewise, companies could explain that certain licensed material will disappear without making every remaining part of the game unusable. Customer access should not become disposable merely because every corporate interest was planned first and the shutdown was planned last. Security completes the triple threat, supported by enough technical language to make total publisher control sound like the only responsible option. Industry representatives warned that unsupported private servers could expose players to old software, stolen credentials, weak moderation, cheating, or malicious hosting. Admittedly, abandoned systems can create genuine risks when released carelessly or left connected to services that no longer receive protection. However, those risks support proper shutdown planning rather than having no shutdown plan at all. Developers could remove required logins, strip sensitive services, explain hosting needs, separate essential gameplay, or release restricted server tools. Their answer cannot sensibly be that possible security problems justify destroying every legitimate customer's access to the whole product. Otherwise, any connected device could be remotely erased whenever maintenance became inconvenient, provided the manufacturer said hackers might appear. Safety should shape the exit method, not excuse its absence. And when those 3 objections failed to explain why deletion must be the default, Brussels pointed customers toward existing consumer law. Current rules can address misleading advertising, unfair terms, broken digital products, missing functions, notice periods, and certain refund claims. Practically, the player must read the contract, understand the rules, preserve evidence, contact the company, file complaints, and possibly challenge a publisher. How many ordinary customers will start a legal battle because an old racing game stopped launching after work on Tuesday? Congratulations, your preservation system is now a complaint form, an authority website, several deadlines, and an argument about reasonable expectations. Rights requiring money, expertise, and months of effort often exist mainly on paper for the people supposedly protected by them. Compensation also does not preserve a game, a community, purchased content, saved progress, or access to a unique cultural work. Legal language can make everything sound distant, but the crew shows the outcome clearly. People paid, Ubisoft closed the servers, and legitimate copies stopped working. The Crew launched in 2014 as an online racing game and was removed from sale by Ubisoft in December 2023. Then Ubisoft shut its servers on March 31, 2024, making digital and physical copies unplayable because the game required company-operated services. French consumer group UFC Quaichoiser filed legal action in March 2026, alleging misleading practices and unfair contract terms concerning access and ownership. Ubisoft's reported position was that customers purchased limited access rather than permanent ownership, which captures the dispute with painful efficiency. Packaging said buy, while the legal argument later translated that word into temporary permission controlled by license terms. Courts may eventually decide whether the warnings were sufficient, but customers understandably expect purchase language to mean more than revocable access. As of June 17, 2026, no public first-round ruling or announced result from that French case could be confirmed, and public sources still describe the action as pending. That absence is the timely update. The lawsuit is active, the claims are public, and the legal outcome still remains unsettled rather than fully decided. Ubisoft is the example, not the exception. Every always-online game faces the same risk when audiences shrink, licenses expire, technology changes, or executives redirect staff. Across PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, Steam, mobile stores, publisher launches, subscriptions, and live service platforms, permission-based gaming keeps expanding. Authentication can even threaten solo games when the main experience checks a remote server that provides no essential gameplay function. Digital libraries look permanent because the icons remain visible, yet each icon may depend on accounts, licenses, servers, and continuing company support. Customers also spend beyond the original price through expansions, skins, currencies, memberships, season passes, and years of accumulated progress. Your collection may look permanent, while the publisher still decides whether any part of it continues working. Ordinary buyers should care, because this issue is not only for preservation experts cataloging forgotten multiplayer titles. Anyone purchasing connected software accepts a hidden lifespan, unless the seller clearly states one or provides a workable shutdown method. Today's blockbuster can become tomorrow's dead shortcut once the audience leaves and maintenance stops helping the balance sheet. Finally, the Commission's response rejects the requested compulsory measure, but it does not end stop killing games. Supporters, consumer groups, parliament members, national authorities, courts, and future lawmakers can continue applying political and legal pressure. Smaller changes may still emerge from voluntary standards, clearer store labels, lifespan warnings, enforcement cases, or future consumer law reform. Signatures created attention, meetings, hearings, debate, and a formal answer, but they did not automatically defeat cost arguments, lobbying, or official caution. Round 1 ended with Brussels offering future talks, voluntary promises, and no compulsory shutdown protection. Altogether, nearly 1.3 million people followed the official process, yet publishers still hold the kill switch while customers carry the risk. Until that changes, digital ownership means paying the full purchase price for access that can disappear without your permission. Should publishers be legally required to leave purchased games playable after shutdown, yes or no? Tell me below, then subscribe, because the next game they erase might already be sitting in your library.